Welcome to The Late Show, everybody. I'm your host, Stephen Colbert. Look, I don't know. Hey, friends. I don't know what you all are talking about, but everybody I talk to is talking about what Donald Trump doesn't want to talk about. So let's talk about it. It being the conspiracy surrounding his old dancing buddy, Jeffrey Epstein. There you go.
I mean, he's so blatantly stupid. He's a punk, he's a dog, he's a pig, he's a con, a bullshit artist, a mutt who doesn't know what he's talking about, doesn't do his homework, doesn't care, thinks he's gaming society, doesn't pay his taxes. He's an idiot. Colin Powell said it best. He's a national disaster. He's an embarrassment to this country.
Donald Trump has been called many things: businessman, showman, disruptor. But Stephen Colbert and Robert De Niro saw through all the branding and stripped it down to something far simpler: an act. To them, Trump wasn't the bold maverick or fearless outsider he sold himself as. He was simply the loudest guy in the room, pitching a product that didn't work, yet convincing millions it was priceless. Their roast exposed the illusion, leaving the salesman without his spectacle.
The president was buddies with a pedophile. On Friday, the Wall Street Journal dropped an absolute bombshell. They are reporting that in 2003, Trump sent a birthday letter to Jeffrey Epstein for his 50th birthday that was sexually suggestive. Yeah, it's the most inappropriate birthday gift since Carvel debuted Fudgy the Hung Like a Whale. Now,
America's Philistine president has had himself appointed head of one of our premier cultural institutions. He has cut funding and support to the arts, humanities, and education. And now he has announced a 100% tariff on films produced outside the U.S. Let that sink in for a minute. You can't put a price on creativity, but apparently you can put a tariff on it. Of course, this is unacceptable. All these attacks are unacceptable.
If you're enjoying this video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon. Colbert mocked the performance like a late-night parody that never ended, while De Niro came at it with the raw ferocity of someone who despises cheap theatrics. Together, they demolished the illusion, showing Trump not as a titan of politics, but as a character so addicted to spectacle that he mistook applause for leadership. Colbert wasted no time cutting into the mythos of Trump as a dealmaker. He framed him not as a master of negotiation, but as a man who never actually finished anything.
for years, before he was, reelected, and recently, since they all got into office, a bunch of high-ranking people in Trump's administration have kept promising to release the files surrounding Jeffrey Epstein, his mysterious clients, and his suspicious death. But now, suddenly, for reasons that I legally cannot think of, Donald Trump seems desperate to stop us from knowing who Jeffrey Epstein's clients were.
From casinos that collapsed like badly shuffled cards to universities that scammed students with empty promises, Colbert mocked Trump's resume as a graveyard of failed ventures packaged with gold lettering. He painted Trump's so-called business genius as nothing more than a magic trick performed with smoke, mirrors, and bankruptcy courts. Every claim of success, Colbert argued, was like watching a guy insist his sinking ship was a luxury cruise liner until you realized the passengers were already bailing out with life vests.
According to the Wall Street Journal, Trump's letter featured several lines of typewritten text framed by the outline of a naked woman, which appears to be hand-drawn with heavy marker. In the drawing, a pair of small arcs denotes the woman's breasts, and the future president's signature is a squiggly Donald below her waist, mimicking pubic hair. Do you know what that means? That means Donald Trump has drawn pubic hair on every executive order.
De Niro added a darker layer to this picture, going after Trump not just as a failure, but as a danger. He framed Trump as someone who thrived on chaos, a man who couldn't survive in a room without conflict. To De Niro, Trump wasn't a leader, but an arsonist, someone who set political fires just so he could stand in front of the blaze and declare himself the hero. The bravado, the tweets, the endless cycle of outrage, they weren't signs of strength, De Niro argued, but symptoms of weakness. What the world saw as power was really insecurity dressed up in capital letters and exclamation marks.
It makes me so angry that this country has gotten to this point, that this fool, this bozo, has wound up where he has. He talks how he wants to punch people in the face. Well, I'd like to punch him in the face. This is somebody that we want for president? I don't think so. What I care about is the direction of this country. And what I'm very, very worried about is that it might go in the wrong direction with someone like Donald Trump. If you care about your future, vote for it.
Colbert circled back to Trump's obsession with image. He roasted the obsession with crowd sizes, the compulsive need to insist everything was the biggest, the best, the most beautiful. Colbert described it like a child with a crayon crown scribbling world's greatest on every surface he could find. He highlighted how Trump's self-promotion wasn't the mark of confidence, but of someone terrified of being forgotten. The endless bragging, Colbert said, wasn't about achievements, but about desperately filling the silence that follows when you actually have nothing to show.
Now, suddenly, for reasons that I legally cannot think of, Donald Trump seems desperate to stop us from knowing who Jeffrey Epstein's clients were. In fact, yesterday, he said he was surprised anyone even cares about the guy.
I don't understand it. Why they would be so interested. He's dead for a long time. He was never a big factor in terms of life.
That sentence was never a big factor in terms of word.
De Niro took that same theme and pushed it harder. For him, Trump's image obsession wasn't just laughable, it was insulting. Here was a man with immense power and influence, yet his daily focus was on TV ratings and magazine covers. De Niro mocked the pettiness of a leader who measured his worth in headlines as if leading the country were just another episode in a reality show. He compared Trump's approach to governance as directing a bad movie, loud explosions, nonsensical plots, and endless takes, with the director constantly storming onto the set to shout about how brilliant he was. Colbert joked that the teleprompter wasn't there to help him deliver ideas, but to remind him where he was in the first place. Each rally speech, Colbert implied, was like a comedy set with no punchline, except the audience wasn't laughing with Trump. They were laughing at him.
Do you really worry that if he were to win again, and I'm not saying this like it's such a far-fetched notion, if he were to win again, that he would not give up power after?
You know he won't. You know he won't. He even said it. He's never going to give it up. And anybody who deludes themselves in thinking that he is, shame on you.
De Niro matched that energy by focusing on Trump's theatrical persona. To him, every entrance, every gesture, every exaggerated hand motion was part of a performance. De Niro described it as method acting gone wrong. Trump had convinced himself that playing the role of a strongman actually made him one. The scowl, the bravado, the posturing, it was all theater without substance. De Niro argued that Trump wasn't just fooling the public, he was fooling himself into believing the applause was real power. Colbert turned to the media worship Trump constantly demanded, but of a thin-skinned celebrity who couldn't handle bad reviews. He painted Trump as the first leader in history whose true enemy wasn't the opposition party, but the critics who gave him 2 stars out of 5. De Niro drove the point home by emphasizing the consequences of this obsession. Trump's fixation on image and spectacle wasn't harmless. It had real costs. Decisions were made not on strategy, but on what looked good for the cameras. Policies were shaped not for long-term impact, but for short-term applause lines.
Do you think our democracy is at risk in this election?
I think that it is. I always keep saying democracy is great, of course, but democracy people take for granted. It's a word that some people don't even understand. They take it for granted. It's about right and wrong, period. The guy's a monster. He is beyond wrong. It's almost like he wants to do the most horrible things that he can think of in order to get a rise out of us. I don't know what it is, but he's been doing it, and it's scary.
Are you
Excuse my French.
De Niro painted it as the ultimate betrayal, a leader who treated the country as a prop in his personal show, sacrificing substance for spectacle at every turn. Colbert closed in on the irony of Trump's populism. Here was a man who styled himself as the champion of ordinary people, yet his life had been built on luxury, privilege, and distance from the struggles of everyday Americans. Colbert mocked the idea of Trump as an outsider, describing him instead as the country club guest who insisted he knew what life was like for the caddies, but as a cautionary tale. For De Niro, Trump would be remembered not as the builder he claimed to be, but as the destroyer of norms, of trust, of unity. De Niro's critique carried the weight of a man who had seen through countless Hollywood performances, and he wasn't impressed. Trump's act, he insisted, wasn't convincing anymore. It was old, tired, and dangerous in its persistence.
We're in a very bad situation. there's not. I remember you and I about 5-6 years ago talking. I'm down at the Spring Studios. Something about. I said, "What just happened? Just happened." No, it didn't. Didn't happen. It's all about truth, and what we have here is a denial of truth all over the place, and even the speech that he made after is insane. It's just insane, and I'm very, very concerned about it. I think we all are. It's insane. So that's why I felt I had to do something, say something about it, to go on record.
Together, Colbert and De Niro crafted a demolition job unlike any other. Colbert's wit sliced through the absurdities, making Trump's antics look like punchlines waiting to be told. De Niro's intensity gave those observations a sharp edge, turning mockery into condemnation. By the end, Trump wasn't the bold leader he sold himself as. He was a caricature, a man trapped in his own performance, endlessly rehearsing lines for a play the audience had already walked out on. What remained was the undeniable truth they both hammered home. Trump's greatest talent wasn't leadership, it was self-promotion. In Colbert's telling, comedy in itself. The truth, Trump is less Napoleon plotting world domination and more a man tweeting at 3 a.m. about cable news hosts who didn't compliment him. Colbert painted him not as a chess player, but as a man who still struggles with Connect 4. And even then, he cheats by pulling out the bottom row when it doesn't go his way.
Understand why the Jeffrey Epstein case would be of interest to anybody. It's pretty boring stuff.
Yes. No, he's right. The Epstein saga is a total snooze fest. I mean, the most powerful man in the world is blocking information about a cabal of the rich, the famous, and the royal, befriending a con man who regularly flies off in his private plane to his private island or do super illegal sex stuff. Then the con man is arrested. People are afraid he's going to name names, but before he can, he mysteriously dies right after being taken off a suicide watch in a federal prison during the administration of the guy who is blocking the release of the information. Boring.
But what truly makes Colbert's roast sting is his ability to highlight how predictable Trump has become. Every controversy, every scandal, every so-called shock is really just a recycled version of the same play. Deny, deflect, and distract. Colbert compared Trump's career to a bad sitcom reboot. It's the same lines, the same laugh track, the same tired catchphrases, just with fewer fans every season. Even his rallies, Colbert quipped, are like cover bands playing the same old songs, except the audience isn't rocking out, they're dozing off in MAGA hats. De Niro, never one for subtlety, went straight for the jugular when tackling Trump's supposed toughness. The performance of strength is not strength, and De Niro knew how to strip away that illusion. For him, Trump is a man who hides behind bluster because he has nothing else.
I can finally speak unvarnished truth to power and say what I really think about Donald Trump, starting right now. I don't care for him. Doesn't seem to have like the skill set. Doesn't have the skill set to be president. You know, just not a good fit, that's all.
The brilliance of their combined roast is how they painted Trump as a parody of himself. Colbert ridiculed his speaking style, those half-finished sentences that meander into nowhere before circling back to the same tired brag. To Colbert, it was like watching a GPS that only has two destinations, Trump Tower and Mar-a-Lago, and still manages to get lost on the way. De Niro layered on the mockery by pointing out how Trump's body language, the exaggerated hand gestures, the puffed chest, is less commanding presence and more nervous magician trying to distract the audience from noticing the trick isn't working. And when the subject turned to Trump's obsession with loyalty, both Colbert and De Niro dug in. Trump, they argued, demands loyalty not to a country, not to principles, but to himself. It was a portrait of fragility masquerading as dominance, a man so insecure that his entire empire of power rests on forcing others to clap harder.
Go f yourself. On Friday, Donald Trump posted, "I absolutely love that Colbert got fired. His talent was even less than his ratings." How dare you, sir? Would an untalented man be able to compose the following satirical witticism? Go f yourself.
Colbert particularly relished roasting Trump's tendency to live in an alternate reality. From claiming he won elections, he lost to denying things caught on tape, Trump, in Colbert's words, is less a politician and more a walking conspiracy theory with a spray tan. He thrives not on truth, but on creating a constant fog of confusion where facts go to die. Colbert mocked this by imagining a world where Trump could claim the sun rises in the West and half his supporters would line up to agree. sunglasses on, facing the wrong horizon. The joke cut deep because it revealed not just Trump's delusion, but the culture of denial he cultivates. De Niro, on the other hand, hit hardest on Trump's character, or lack of it. He blasted Trump as a man who measures success in gold-plated fixtures and social media followers, not in decency or integrity. To De Niro, Trump's legacy isn't wealth or leadership, but a trail of lawsuits, bankruptcies, and burned bridges. Colbert's jokes softened the blows only to make them land harder. De Niro's fury amplified the absurdity until it was undeniable. Together, they crafted a demolition job that didn't just tear at Trump's image, but collapsed the entire mythology built around him. Trump wasn't exposed as a misunderstood genius or a tragic figure. He was revealed as a salesman who sold America an empty product, a carnival barker whose show has run too long past the point of entertainment.